Hi everyone. I've been meaning to make this video for a long time, for about 2 months. So as most people probably know, I was hospitalized at the end of October with the thing, and I had extra complications as well. And I was sent at that time a lot of healing from people all over. And I'm so very, very grateful. And whilst I've thanked people via social media, I did want to actually make a video and especially thank people who had gone out of their way to send healing and ask their sort of group to send healing. And I was taken in a potentially life-threatening situation. That was the thought of the paramedics. It turned out that when I had some tests done, that potentially life-threatening situation was not as bad as they had originally thought, which was a great blessing. And I was in hospital for a week. So I'm just so grateful to all the people who sent healing, and I want to send out a thank you to them all. So I've just got some notes here as to who I'd like to say thank you to. If you don't want to sit and listen to me thanking people, then by all means switch off, because that's all this video is going to be about. It's simply a thank you video. But for those who want to listen, then I'm going to begin to personally thank all these people. So firstly, everyone on my Telegram group. They were the first people I contacted when I was actually, my memory is pretty not great. There was memory being affected here. I believe this is probably, according to my functional medicine practitioner, if there is a lack of oxygen to the body, that can affect the brain, lack of oxygen to the brain. And so that can actually affect your memory, so that when you think back to the time when you were going through that, your memory is hazy. So I believe I contacted the Telegram group when I arrived at accident and emergency, A&E, which in America is your emergency room, ER. Over here in the UK, it's A&E. I believe I messaged the Telegram group asking for healing once I'd arrived at A&E. However, I might have messaged them in the ambulance on the way, but I think it was once I'd arrived at A&E. As I said, my memory isn't great. In fact, there are certain things that occurred because I was 13 days in bed at home before we called for an ambulance when things had worsened. And there are things that when I got home, that Cat's Magic was telling me, and he said, do you remember me doing this? And do you remember you saying that? And I'm like, no, absolutely no memory of these events. Slowly, they've started to come back, somewhat hazy, especially as Cat's Magic kind of filled me in on what happened. Slowly, memories come back. So yeah, really interesting that can affect memory. And I presume that this is because of low oxygen. So everyone on my Telegram group, I contacted them asking for healing, saying I was in hospital, and I had absolutely tons and tons and tons of replies and messages, but I didn't really have time to read them necessarily while I was in A&E. And it wasn't so much that I didn't have time, I wasn't really in the right focus to read messages. I was sort of going through my own process, and they were giving me morphine for the pain I was in. So the morphine made everything a little bit hazy. That was pretty crazy. I only had one shot of morphine. But I do remember sensing healing, even on the morphine, even while I was in this sort of crazy state where I didn't really know what was going on. I knew what was going on an intrinsic level, and I moved myself into the only situation I could really move into at that point, and that was complete surrender to the process. I knew I didn't have full control. I had certain levels of control, but in a hospital scenario, you have to kind of give yourself over to the medical staff and the whole situation, especially if your situation is potentially life-threatening. So I went into complete surrender. And in a way, it's like there was some fear in me before I went in. But once I was in the ambulance and in A&E, I think the fear kind of went away. When I moved into that surrender, it was kind of like, well, there's no fear anymore. It's more really the case of what will be, will be. And me just asking, I guess, for the best outcome, asking for healing, and actually physically grounding that by literally asking for healing on my Telegram group. And that healing came in straight away. So I wasn't necessarily reading the replies until after, and there were just hundreds of them, but I was feeling the healing in A&E. I could feel it coming to me. I could feel people sending healing to me. And I was picking up at that time people's thoughts, people's emotions, sending love. There were pictures, orbs, animals, like unicorns and dolphins, that kind of energy, and light and candles. And I just felt all of this, didn't really analyze it. Interestingly enough, I didn't find out until later when I was back home that there were people actually, sending more negative thoughts, such as, I hope she doesn't make it, and that sort of thing. I saw those comments. Anyway, I'm not going to go there because, funnily enough, or luckily enough, that was hidden from me. That was, I was shielded from that. And the guidance around me, whichever energy that was, because it was, I say, more than the 9. The 9 are kind of everything, encompassing the entire guidance structure, but there were other presentations of that guidance structure while I was in hospital. So I can go into that sort of later as I get through this thank you, because this thank you is for physical people and non-physical energies as well. It is a private ceremonial movement of gratitude, as well as a public YouTube video. It's both of those things. So yeah, I'm thanking these 2 different presentations of life on the physical level and on the non-physical level. So that was kind of in A&E, and I was shielded from anything negative. I didn't pick up on these negative thoughts at all. And I feel that, my energy was obviously in 3D because I was working with what was going on around me, but very 5th dimensional because I was in that zone, if you will, in that field, and sensing the energetics there as well. And this was kind of the whole time that I was in hospital. The entire week I was fluctuating between 3D and 5D and holding that merge, that frequency, in order to sustain me through, so that my experience on the 3rd dimensional level would be positive, despite being in a potentially life-threatening situation, which, well, being honest and being realistic and looking at the situation, I was in a life-threatening situation. It wasn't as bad as they'd thought, but it could have been, but they prevented it. They were wonderful. The paramedics were amazing. All of the staff, I actually witnessed 2 staff, 2 nurses having a bit of a grumpy day, and they were moaning. Other than that, there was nothing negative that I witnessed or saw in any of the staff that I came across. I mean, they were just fantastic. They were just brilliant. And I have nothing but gratitude for them and praise for them. So, I had a really good experience. And as you can see, I'm home, been home 2 months. I am not fully recovered from this physically and on all levels, really. I'm not fully recovered. So I'm making this video because I've been wanting to make this ever since I came home, but I wanted to be more coherent because I do feel that my process between thought and verbal communication of that thought is not as precise as it usually is. So bear with me, I might be a bit slow between thought and verbalizing that thought. And the channeling and the connection with the 9 is the same, but it's processing through me slower than it usually is. but I'm still at the moment taking medication, and that is probably the reason why there is this not block, but there is this slowing down of that link. But it's there, and the medication hasn't really affected that too much, which is great, because I was on medication, a different kind of medication. I was on beta blockers going back 6 or 7 years, and that definitely affected the link with the 9. I couldn't see them, I couldn't feel them, I could only hear them. Whereas this time, the medication I'm on are anticoagulants, and that hasn't affected those links. I can see them, I can feel them, I can hear them. What it's affected is the processing speed. It's slower than it was. But I am absolutely hoping and intending to be off this medication within about 3 weeks. It was a 3-month medication, and I have to see the specialist and get his agreement. But I'm absolutely hoping that I will be off the medication by the end of this month, and then I can start to, I feel, move into real healing. I feel that my full healing has been fantastic and really good, especially from all the help, which is why I'm thanking everyone. But I don't feel I can move into optimum healing until the medication has been released from my system. But it's there because it's preventing a potentially life-threatening situation. So that's why I'm on it. And I did take 2 different opinions from 2 orthodox doctors, but I also took a 3rd opinion from a doctor who is originally an orthodox GP, general practitioner, and is now a functional medicine doctor as well. And I want to say thank you to him. And his name is, I'm just wondering if I should say his name or not. You know, I'm not going to. I don't want to. I don't want to place any kind of target onto anyone. But he's a well-known doctor who was a general practitioner in the United Kingdom, and he stood up for his rights and for our rights and for truth, and still is. And he's very well known in the country now. So I saw him to get another opinion about whether I should stay on this medication for the 3 months, because I wanted to come off it kind of straight away. You know, I have great trust for him. So when he said, no, you do need to stay on it for the 3 months, then I've had to do that. And I think, you know, that's been a huge lesson for me. And that's working with orthodox medication, because it's been something I admit I've been in resistance to. And the whole, and hospitals and medical procedures and doctors and everything. There was resistance in me for a long time to that, because I know it's part of a structure that is not in the same vibration that I am in and that my thoughts are in. However, I have learned so much about navigating through that structure and being able to create a 3D, 5D merge or bubble around you, so that you experience the 5th dimensional frequency within that structure, and it draws to you all of the light within that structure, and that light is there on the ground, on the floor, you know, in the hospitals or the shops or whichever business it is. Even if the business is ultimately controlled from the top by a darker structure, the light is there, and you can find it when you align yourself with that 5th dimensional frequency through surrender. And that doesn't mean giving up and just thinking, oh, well, I'm helpless now. There's nothing I can do. I just have to let you do what you want to me. It's not that at all. It's an empowered surrender. It is a surrender to the process in trust. So you become sovereign within it. And you aren't a passive observer or a passive participant in that. You are actually taking control of that situation through the surrender. It's difficult to explain, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. So anyway, this video is about saying thank you to people. So thank you to that doctor. And I also want to thank personally my functional medicine practitioner. Again, I don't want to actually put any kind of negative focus on these wonderful people who are working in a sort of a medical sense. So, but yeah, you know who you are, and so I'm saying a personal thank you to you, and hello to your mum as well. Hi mum. Okay, let's go through these, you know, sort of spiritual teachers and people who are in that movement who helped to send healing to me and asked others to send healing to me, which I felt and saw. So I'm in A&E and I could feel this healing. And then when they moved me onto the ward, everything, the healing kind of went quiet for a while as I was sort of adjusting to being on the ward and catching up on the sleep I hadn't had. And then once I was sort of up and about a little bit more, and I mean sitting up, I don't mean walking around, I started, when I was privately on my own, I'd bring my curtains round. I didn't like having my curtains open and seeing everyone else in the ward. In those first 2 or 3 days, I was really private, really quiet. I was the quietest person on the ward. You know, and the nurses kept poking their head around, are you all right? And I was just quiet and contemplative and in that state of 3D, 5D merge. And this is when I picked up so much more healing wise. So I wanted to say thank you to everyone in the Telegram group, especially. Really, really thank you to all of you. You're all amazing and wonderful. Even though we had some infiltration in the group, that's another subject. Also over on my MeWe group and my MeWe profile and on Instagram and all my other social media platforms, everybody was sending private messages, public messages, sending healing. And I caught up on reading all this when I got home, but I didn't see all of them while I was in the hospital, but I could feel this. Now, some people, what I saw when I was back on the ward, and it was like when I brought the curtains round, it was like I was creating a shield or boundary. So it was like, although there was lots of healing getting through, and I could see the energy of the healing, the healers themselves were, even if they were like vibrational, there was like and this all came from the guidance system around me, because I was very, as I said, I wasn't passive, I was connected, but I wasn't strong enough at that point to create my own spiritual focus from my own awareness that was coming in from the guidance system, which was the 9 all-encompassing, but there were other energetics there as well. And the one that was actually, and you know, he told me he was leading this process with me, so more so than the 9 in a more prominent position, was Archangel Michael, which makes sense because Archangel Michael is the male protective force for the Starseed collective. So all aware Starseeds as a collective present in a feminine sense, I'm told, as the divine Princess Aurora, and the counterpart to that, her twin flame, if you will, is Archangel Michael. So that's the male protective force. And Archangel Michael was leading this process around me. And the 9 were there, and other energies were there. My father was there, who's passed over in 2018. But Archangel Michael was leading this. He was facilitating the whole thing. And there was some kind of not barrier, but like a veil, so that the healers weren't coming in. Otherwise, I would have seen all of these different people, and that would have been too overwhelming for me to have all these people etherically coming into my space. So what I saw was the healing. And as I said, candles, altars, I saw pictures of myself with candles. I saw crystals placed around pictures of me, but I mostly felt this love and this, you know, sadness that I was unwell, and a lot of knowing that I would be okay. And I didn't necessarily have that myself. I guess it was there, but I wasn't conscious of it, but I could see it in others, and I could see the power and the healing abilities and the psychic abilities they had. So that really helped me to find my strength. And it just showed to me what a powerful force we are when we are united. And this is what this is all about. we don't just help each other on the street when you see somebody who hasn't got any food and you give them some food, or someone needs a lift somewhere, so you drive them to where they want to go. This is about unity ethically, and it's so powerful, it's so real, and this energy is what's going to take us through this whole situation that's occurring on planet Earth right now, and beyond planet Earth, this potential takeover, attempted takeover, planetary and beyond planetary. We have so much power when we come together. Individually we have that, but that isn't enough to create these ripples and movements, but together it is, because you are reading the collective field, not just energetically from non-physical fifth dimensional entities, but from the actual physical collective. So whilst I didn't know if I was going to be okay, and I wasn't necessarily questioning it, actually, I wasn't sitting there thinking, am I going to live or not? I saw exit points. I saw around 6 or 7 exit points, which is probably the most I've ever seen. And those exit points are portals to leave your body and go through the death process. I saw those exit points around me. So I knew something was going on in my body that was close to that somewhere, but I didn't really acknowledge them or go forward to them. But neither did I have the knowledge and knowing that I was going to be okay. I was just in this surrender, just riding the process. And it wasn't hope, it wasn't wishing, it was simply moving into this core point of healing and just asking, please heal me, please help me, please heal me. That's where I was, in this, you know, place of asking. And I saw the energies of these healers from my groups, people who watch the videos, who know me, and they had knowing. They were saying, or energetically, they were saying, I know that you're going to be okay. I've seen you recover. I've seen you come home. And I could see their accuracy, and I could see their authenticity. So I knew that they were right in their reality. So I thought, I have to move my reality to match their reality and I'll be okay. So I was so grateful for that, because it just gave me so much strength. And I was so vulnerable, I have to admit, in that situation. So much learning takes place with everything, especially when something takes you into an exit point reality. You have huge learning, and it could take a long time to process, which is why I've taken 2 months to make this video. Now, this is something we're all going through, obviously. This is a global potential exit point situation. So we are all going through this. And then we make the choice on these multiple levels. I mean, we could say a soul level choice or a physical level choice, but it's more than that. It's multiple levels. We choose whether to take the exit point, to acknowledge the exit point, but to stay and learn from it. And it takes time to process. So I'm still in that process now. So I still don't know all the reasons why this experience occurred with me, but I'm going through the healing here. So when I was on the ward, I was saying there was this sort of veil, and this allowed me to see the energy of the healers. It allowed me to see the healing, but the individual healers, hundreds, potentially thousands of them, would have been too overwhelming to come through the veil. But there were about, it's hard to remember, but it was a handful, maybe, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4, 5 even, that were allowed through the veil to come right up to my bed and give me healing. And it was such a powerful experience, because I was like, well, the healers have been kept over the other side of the veil so that I'm not overwhelmed, but these specific ones were allowed through. Some of the healing took me into such altered states that I didn't really concentrate too much on the healer. But what I do remember is these were very advanced, adept healers, mostly within the field of Reiki or their own template that is similar to Reiki. So there was this very few, they came forward with their guidance structure, with their guide, the individual guide, or maybe some of them may have had more than one guide. These guides were ascended masters, but they were not ascended masters that I had ever seen before, or that I'd ever met, or that I knew, and I didn't know what their names were. These are the ascended masters that are not categorized or labeled within a New Age community or spiritual community. These are ascended masters that hold that ascended master frequency, that are not hidden, but they are very, very personal. And they don't need to be categorized as having names or linking to any particular vibrational label or ray. So these were the typical ascended masters, I guess, are Saint Germain and Sananda, and well, there's lots of them. As I said, my processing and my speech is not as fast as it usually is. But these ascended masters didn't have those links. They were different. I couldn't really pinpoint what they were, other than of extremely high vibrational Christ consciousness. And the healers that were linked with these particular masters, and as I said, there were only a few, and I think 4, 5, or 6, there probably weren't any more than that. They came forward, and sometimes they came at different times. So one came in, and then it would be an hour later before another one came in, after I'd, had lunch or something, or after I had a little sleep. It was happening over time in the hospital. And they would come and lay hands over me, and their guidance were either standing behind them, just sort of watching them, or the guides would have their hands on the healer and the healer had their hands on me, over me. But there was one healer, and this, well, he must have been the most, I can't say the most powerful, but the most aligned with me at that time. And his healing was not just over me, but he actually took an energy inside me, and he was doing some major work. It was so powerful. This particular healer I know exists, but I've never met him. He's known in the community he lives in as a healer, but even then, even in the community he lives in, few really know about him. He works very much in a solitary way. He is aware of me, and I don't know how, whether it's videos or social media. He is an older gentleman, and the only thing I was shown as a symbol of who he is he's surrounded by donkeys. It sounds crazy, but he has donkeys with him. I could see them around him. I mean, they weren't actually coming into the ward by my hospital bed, but I knew that he had donkeys with him in his physical life. Private, quiet man, but an extremely powerful Reiki healer, or similar to Reiki. And he came in and did some major work on me. I don't know what. So I'm saying thank you to these beings, these fifth dimensional beings. As I said, this is a thank you video on YouTube, but it is also my own personal ceremonial movement of gratitude, which I would do perhaps privately, and I'm doing this publicly because my whole health journey was made pretty public. And I'm not sure whether that was a mistake or not. When I put out my messages to my social media and to Telegram, and when the family put out updates, all I could think of at that time was my loving, supportive community, because I was in such a vulnerable state and wasn't at that point of focus. It didn't cross my mind that there would be anyone negative in there that would want me to be ill, that would want me to not make it. I couldn't conceive of that. Neither did I think there would be a journalist lurking in the group who then went on to publish an article in an extremely well-known, well-known paper or online. I'm not even really sure what this particular journalist profile or program is, whether it's online or whether it's actually physical, but it's prominent. Lots of people had seen the article, which was engineered in a certain way. I won't say it was twisted because it wasn't that much, but obviously this journalist had been lurking a long time. So she was quoting things I'd said in the group to other people and kind of placing a slant on that without twisting it. But then other articles, other companies, journalist companies, either online or physical, there were several, had picked up the story and they twisted the story to actually make it look like I'm this, you know, terrible person advising my people who follow me to do all these awful things. And as I said, I'm not going to go there, but it didn't cross my mind. You know, I had family afterwards saying, why ever did you allow such openness about your situation to go onto social media? And I explained, I was being open. That's the answer. I was being open and sharing. For me, in a focused state, privacy is important, but privacy is only important in a hijacked reality. It's not even something that a fifth dimensional and above soul thinks about, because in that realm, there's no need for privacy. There's no need to hide things because everything is known, everything is shared, everything is open, because in that place is nothing but pure trust. There's no backstabbing. There's no dishonor. It doesn't exist there. And because I was vulnerable, I didn't focus in on that. I only saw the community. And so, you know, that was something else that I had to sort of learn when I got home. And, you know, it was a learning experience, as is everything, which I'm grateful for. The worst thing about that was my family had to see this while I was still in hospital. And at that point, they hadn't been told whether I was going to survive or not. So I have my husband, Cat's Magic, at home, getting emails from this journalist saying we've published this article and he's got to read this article. And at that time, he didn't know if I was going to make it or not. There's also this, I'm not sure who has created this group. It's got very dark energy, kind of, you know, the actual negative elite structure, cabal behind it. But it's an award, it's Herman something award that they give to people who've spoken out publicly against Jews. If they then die of the thing, they get awarded an award and their name goes on a list. And so I was on that list while I was in hospital, waiting to see if I would survive or not. And there were lots of comments there. I didn't read them. I read a couple and then just sort of left the site. But I didn't know any of this until I got home. I didn't see any of this while I was in hospital. But apparently my award was rescinded because I survived and ended up being discharged from hospital. Whoever makes this awful thing that your family has to read while they don't know whether you're going to survive or not, or if you don't survive, you then get the award. Obviously, this is coming from a group that are so against those who are speaking their truth about what they see about the Jews situation. So we all know how huge that is. Anyway, this video is supposed to be a thank you video, so I've gone off track there. So I'm going to be grateful to everything. Thank you for me to being put on that list. Thank you for the articles. Thank you for the negative posts. I mean, gratitude for all of it, because everything is a learning process. Everything teaches you. Everything teaches you something. So I'm not in any state of upset or anger about this. It was upsetting that my family had to see that before they knew if I was going to survive or not. You know, I have children, they're adult children, but they're still young adults in their 20s and 30s. And they were very, very worried about me, and I wouldn't want them to go through that, but it happened, and it's a lesson learned. So that is really the thank you to all of the non-physical energies. And obviously, you know, I could be thanking those energies forever, because it goes on and on and on into a multiple stream and multi-layers, and it continues, the healing continues. So I'm utterly grateful for that. So the physical people that I would like to send thank you to, apart from the doctor I mentioned and my functional medicine nutritionist, who I don't want to, you know, place any negative target on. So, you know, that's one of the things I've learned by this negative aspect to all this, is not to bring targets to anyone else. The people I am going to mention are already out there in the spiritual community anyway. So the first person I'd like to give a massive thank you to is Jen McCarty. Jen organized like a healing vigil online as soon as she found out that I was in hospital, and there were just hundreds of people taking part, and she led a healing process, a visualization process, very powerful. I could feel this happening, and this counteracted the sadness from the negative side and all of the articles and the journalism that was twisted and everything. This counteracted that and made my family so happy that people were doing this. So massive, massive thank you to Jen McCarty. I'm also going to thank Nina Starsong, who did something really similar to Jen with her group. And I know that Patricia Corey, Tara Love Perry, and Rising Phoenix Aurora also asked their group to send healing. So, you know, we've got masses of healing going on here. I mean, literally, I could feel this. There just like thousands of people sending healing to me. And I feel that the lesson from this is to say, this is something we can do for everyone and everything as we move forward. Our power is so strong when we collectively come together in this telepathic connection and then ground this physically. This is how we are going to create new earth and bring down negative dark structures on this planet. That's how we're going to do it, through this, what the Nine call alchemical unification. So I was, I guess, the recipient of alchemical unification. And that's one of the reasons I had to go through this, a reason that I can use to teach globally about this, or talk about, or just confirm your own knowing. Obviously, there are personal, private lessons I had to go through as well, and facing fears, which I did. I'd also like to thank Amanda Ellis, who did the same thing and asked her group when she knew that I was in hospital. Amanda Ellis and I are very different in the way we present our work, but we do come up with similar conclusions with things. And I've known Amanda Ellis for a long time. I've been to her presentations on Metatron because she lives near me, so we know each other. She was at mine and Cat's Magic's hand fasting back in 2019, or 2019. And over the last, I would say maybe 2 or 3 years, we seem to sort of veer off into slightly different directions specific to Mr. T. And that is where there was kind of like a mismatch in our interpretations of the energies that we're picking up. So she was giving out quite different information to me on that. You know what? That doesn't make any difference at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if we see things differently. If I see one thing about Mr. T and she sees the complete opposite, it really doesn't matter, because number one, it's good to have different perspectives for people to look at so that they can find out what their own truth is on this. But it's also about rising above differences and finding the unity which comes from the heart, genuine caring and love. And Amanda wrote something similar to that effect on her social media. And I was very, very, very grateful to see that she had done that. So I'm saying a personal thank you to Amanda Ellis for that. It really means a lot to me. Amanda Lawrence, she and I were in touch privately and exchanging messages. She was also going through her own sort of similar situation. I know she was in hospital herself for a day, I believe. So we had lots of chats privately. I want to say a big thank you to Amanda Lawrence. Love you, Amanda, you're amazing. Same with Paul Dobry-Carey, also known as Polaris AB, who has also been through his own very similar journey just after me, and we have been in touch privately, and he was supporting me. And then when he went through his somewhat similar situation, which I don't believe is related to the thing, but is similar to the thing, but not, I was supporting him. So we exchanged a lot of emails. And when I first contacted him, I was kind of very shaky energetically and sort of falling apart with my focus. That's when I was going into a little bit of worry. And he's so grounded and strong and focused. Even when he was unwell, he was able to find that. And through his messages to me, I'm able to sort of empathically map where he is and find that groundedness for myself. So he really helped me as well. I'd also really like to mention Becky Parks and Simon as well. Absolutely. And they both sent, you know, their wishes and their love. But Becky and I were in touch most days while I was towards the end of me being in hospital and since I've come home. And she's been incredibly supportive as well. I'm sure there are other people too that have contacted me and sent private messages of healing. And sent all sorts of suggestions regarding spiritual healing, esoteric healing, regarding supplements and programs and protocols, and, you know, just the intention, even if I don't necessarily follow that protocol, and I am following a protocol with my functional medicine nutritionist and my functional medicine doctor, I'm following a protocol already. And they're both very, very helpful. But the intention to send that is healing in and of itself. So sorry if I've forgotten anyone, but I wanted to personally thank all of those physically incarnated people who actually went out of their way to send healing. And I want to thank the non-physical energies around me that were there throughout my journey in hospital. And there was one particular time in hospital where I did go into real fear and real panic, because it brought up all anxieties from the past and triggered traumas from the past. And it was specific to having a CT scan, and it's not the scan, it's the iodine dye that they use. I didn't want to have that. I've had it once before and it just felt horrible, but I was only, 18 at the time. So I wasn't really aware of issues and dangers. I've done research since to find out that the iodine dye can actually affect people really badly. You can go into anaphylactic shock. And because I've had certain reactions to pharmaceuticals and to supplements as well, and I'm very sensitive if I've got too much pharmaceutical, the dosages given to most people are too much for me. And the same with supplements, but in a different way. So this iodine dye was just a massive no. But I, was told by the doctors, you really, really need to have this scan. And I refused it 3 times. Nope, not having it. Nope, not having it. And there was this one doctor, and he was really kind and really sensible and so caring, and said, we're not going to force you, but these are the reasons we need you to have this CT scan. And I had my family saying, please have the scan, because it would have given a prognosis, a picture of prognosis that they would not have been able to ascertain without. I felt my own prognosis energetically and had trust in that prognosis. And it turned out that I was right. So I didn't feel I needed this procedure, because I knew energetically what the prognosis would be. But there was this whole thing about me facing my fear, and I had to go into such surrender when eventually I said, yes, I would do this. And again, this was what I perceived to be an exit point. It actually wasn't. The CT scan and the dye was not an exit point. The exit point was coming in the thing, the thing beginning with C, the cookie roo. that was what the exit point was about, and complications with it, and potential complications with it that didn't occur. The scan was to see whether this potential life-threatening situation was there or not, and I knew that it wasn't. So that the whole point here was the fact that the team around me physically they sort of act very quickly. It's like, right, we're doing this, and everyone gets into place, and you have one member of staff here and one member of staff there, and they all seem to work like this flowing team. And energetically, that was being mirrored by Archangel Michael as this facilitator for all of these other entities. My father was there as well, who seemed to be somewhat standalone and wasn't necessarily under the sort of following of Archangel Michael. It was a standalone bubble into my father, but the other angelic and fifth dimensional forces and energies and all the healing that was coming in was sort of beaming out from the apex, which was Archangel Michael. And when I was in the CT scan, I had the machine telling me to do one thing, and then Archangel Michael was talking to me with the 9 around him, telling me what to do, and I was listening to him as well as the machine. So it was just a really unusual situation, and I felt this fear, but I also felt this absolute surrender to this team of light and Archangel Michael, and remaining in this, please help me, please help me, please protect me. But I also felt this determination, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be okay. This dye isn't going to affect me. I'm going to be okay. And when I actually came out of the CT scan, I still had my eyes closed. I had a sign, because my daughter's name is Rosie. And when I got to the CT room, the nurse said her name was Rosie, and I just was burst into tears. You've got the same name as my daughter. That means I'm going to be okay. It's a sign. It's a sign. I think the staff thought I was just the craziest person, the craziest patient in the hospital. But when I came out of the CT scan, and it had gone so much quicker than I thought, I still thought it was happening and going ahead, because I still had all this energy with me from my father, from Archangel Michael, from the 9, from all these beings, from all this healing. I had my eyes closed, and she said to me, you can open your eyes now. You can open your eyes. It's all finished. You've done really, really well. We've got some wonderful pictures. And so they were really pleased with me, because I did everything the machine told me to do. And apparently a lot of people don't. But I had Archangel Michael there telling me in a different way what to do. It was like, it wasn't the machine. It's like the AI of the machine was being completely counteracted by the Archangel Michael consciousness, balanced, not counteracted, but changed into a form that I would recognize, fifth dimensional communication. Well, above, if not above fifth dimensional communication. It changed the proceedings for me. It's hard to explain, and I still haven't processed everything, but I was so proud of myself for facing such a massive, massive fear. But when I came out and she said, you can open your eyes, I said, I can't open my eyes. And she said, why not? And I said, am I still alive? Because I thought, if I open my eyes, will I find myself somewhere else and I'm not actually alive? And somehow this dye has caused me to leave my body and I'm not actually on earth anymore. I think they thought I was crazy. So, you are still alive, you can open your eyes. And I opened my eyes, and there I was, still in the room. And I'm like, I survived it, you know, I'm okay. It was just massive to me. And I'm sure there are many of you who've been through similar situations that you can relate to. Something that was so anxiety causing that you went through. It's kind of like an initiation, a rite of passage, and something I had to go through, because accessing the healing I need overall, I don't necessarily mean about this recent thing, but long-term healing does take faith in a protocol or supplements or some kind of nutritional path. And whilst I was doing that, there were certain things I wouldn't take because I was afraid how that would affect me. So I'm actually limiting my healing specifically to herbalism, homeopathy, supplements. I'm limiting my healing by allowing anxiety to prevent me from taking that particular substance. And I've never really spoken about this before. But now this whole experience, I faced it. And if I can have iodine dye in me and this, you know, anticoagulant medication that has a list of side effects as long as your arm, then once I've moved through that, these supplements are nowhere near, well, they're not negative anyway. These supplements are fully healing. So I was in anxiety to full healing, safe protocols because of past issues with medication. That's the situation, which I learned and have processed and I'm still processing. So that's why these things occur to us. It gives us learning on a personal level, helps us heal traumas from the past, and then allows us to go through with new knowledge, armed with a new tool for our wellness and our healing. So I'm still in a certain way in that process of surrender. I'm still receiving healing at the moment from physical people who are still writing to me saying, until they hear me say, I'm fully recovered from this, they're continuing to light candles and continuing to send healing. And I'm not ready yet to say I'm fully healed because I'm still on medication, which has potential side effects. And until I come off that medication and it's moved out of my system and I move on to a protocol physically and energetically without that, that is when I can make that statement. But I do make that statement in order to create it and manifest it. So I'm not going to not make the statement, but I'm still incredibly grateful for the continued healing and in a receptive state for that healing. And that was something the Nine said to me was really, really important. And that is your receptivity. My receptivity to healing is really high. That's why I had such a beneficial effect on multiple levels, because I had healing coming in from multiple levels, from actual physical people. And I am receptive to the healing of just one. The barriers to the negative energy were placed, and as I said, they're not barriers, they're veils. They were placed in such a way that any negative thought couldn't come close to me, leaving me within this space to receive healing only. That's something I normally do consciously, filter out the negative, be aware of it, but don't let it touch me, and allow that space to be there for the positive. But in that vulnerable state, I didn't have the focus to do that. So the guidance system, the Nine, did that for me, overseen by Archangel Michael. So that's really my gratitude and thanking and my ceremonial movement into gratitude energetically and sharing that publicly. So that's what this video is about. Turned out to be longer than I expected. Thank you to everyone who stuck with me and listened. And I hope that perhaps something I've said has helped you in some way, as we are all going through such a similar thing right now in different ways. Lots of love to everybody. See you all again soon. Bye.